and I apologize to the Buddha because it's going to be right there. I'm going to start with this little line from Babaji. I think we've all heard him say this numerous times, and it's never more fitting than in the week before this election. The news makes me laugh. The news makes me laugh. Oh, and I have to do a quick timeout. Dharma and Annapurna brought their newborn to the class. Way to go. Thank you. It's so amazing. Wow. Breathe it in. Yeah, the news makes me laugh. Okay. You got to ask ourselves, is this because the news is actually funny? Okay, because he's not actually talking about like the Daily Show. He's talking about like the boring news. Is this because the news is actually funny? Or is this a secret teaching that we're sort of looking past? And I think for the sake of this presentation, I'm exploring the possibility that it's a secret teaching. I'm going to explore this a little bit with some sutras just to show you that it's not just poetic. That's a big one right there, but I'm going to read it with you. For those who are fully aware of God consciousness, all of the organs of cognition, action, and the intellect, meaning our mind and our senses, lead that individual to the supreme state of God consciousness. For those who are not aware, those same organs, the mind, the senses, deprive us of that God consciousness. This is the Spandakarikas, which is like a commentary text on the Shiva Sutras that we've been studying together. It's telling us if we get too tied up in the news, for example, it's going to make you feel sour. But if you got your attention inside, while you're watching it, that same news could actually become a source of fuel for growth. Something we're very familiar with in our tradition. You see, we're really grateful. I mean, we're so blessed because we have the teachings of Shambhavananda and Rudrananda and Muktananda, and of course Nityananda, bringing these 1,000, 2,000-year-old teachings into our modern context. Because this is literally what they were trying to teach 1,000 years ago. But we have Rudy telling us something so similar. This quote: your relationship to your suffering has to do with how much you feel the suffering. If you're above it, really reaching towards your enlightenment, that suffering, this is fascinating right here, is a warm thing that keeps the snow off of you. If you're complaining all the time, you're right in the middle of that fire, suffering, and there's no energy for you to grow above it. So thanks for Faith. This is from Rudy and the Green Apple, for Faith for drawing that quote into the book so that we can use it. It's just so fascinating. A little bit of separation allows you to use what would otherwise be sort of challenging to grow, to keep the snow off of you, he says, which is like a poetic way of saying, to use it to keep you moving in your practice. But other parts of the quote that I didn't use here, he says, like, if you want to stick your foot in that fire, yeah, it's going to burn. So the tension that we might feel when we watch the news or the debate or documentaries that are showing us things we should see but don't always want to see, that stuff could either be fuel for growth or fuel for tension, fuel for contraction. And it's really up to us to make that shift, that internal shift that changes the whole paradigm. And yes, this is not something that, I'm coming up with. This is a core principle of our practice that we hear about a lot. But today I want to explore that little shift in the idea of how Babaji said, laughing at the news. Or, maybe a slightly more practical way of talking about it, as Paul Reps wrote 30 years ago, a slight smile stretches a mile. Because laughing, that's a pretty advanced practice. Like, I'm going to leave that one for Manu. Laughing is that's a lot of detachment. It sort of represents like, wow, I'm well above it. That's going to be hard to do in those situations that are causing you tension. But a slight smile is very realistic. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to give this presentation because I've been pushing myself to explore the slight smile in many different situations. And I will tell you, yes, it is very challenging a lot of times, but a lot of times it's not, and you just didn't realize you could have been doing that. And so that slight smile is a really approachable goal that we can attain in a lot of different situations. Babaji tells us that this slight smile really represents like the nature of surrender. He says because surrender has to do with opening up to your limitations and simply releasing them. See, the slight smile works because our true nature isn't tension. Our true nature is bliss. And so a slight smile releases that grip, and suddenly what you really are starts to come out. So it's not like we have to destroy our tensions or battle them. We just have to actually let them go, and then we rise up. When I was grumpy as a kid, I can very, very clearly remember these painful moments. When I was grumpy as a kid, and it didn't happen a lot, pretty happy kid, but when I was stubborn about it. And I remember my mom being like, "Don't you smile. Don't you smile." And it was like so deeply infuriating because it was working. And I would be like, "No, I'm not going to smile." And I always would smile. And it would make me drop the thing I was like so upset about for just an instant. And because we're not really gripping our ego as tightly as kids as we are when we're adults, when I let go of it, it was like, you went right to the top. Like, I don't even remember what I was upset about. All you parents out there, literally in this very chat room parenting, probably have a trick like that of your own. And the reason you have tricks like that is because they work. And the reason they work is because our true nature is actually bliss. And if we really let go of this stuff that we're literally holding on to, if we just decide to let go of it, we go up. We go up. All right. So this is you holding your tension. Oh, it feels so good. I love my tension. It's who I am. And it's the craziest thing. You're sitting there just snuggling up against something that's literally holding you at the bottom of the ocean. Babaji tells us, all you need to do is let go of that anchor and you'll rise to the top. But we like our anchor. We're very much attached to it. We put time and energy into creating a persona, identity, and limitations, which are the building blocks of our anchor of tension. On the one hand, it seems silly that we would not let go of this anchor. But on the other hand, to let go of the anchor is the most terrifying thing in the world. You know, like I was talking about as a kid. Let's keep with this underwater theme and sort of unpack this concept a little bit more. So basically imagine like you're a fish, okay, and you see some attractive bait, like when you're bored. I hate to use like, your phone represents everything that's wrong. It's not about, everything that's wrong. It's just when we're bored, boom, the first little bait we usually go to is like an app that we like. You click on it, let's say it's the news app. You're opening it up because you think it's going to be fun, and then it gets a hook in you with some, Supreme Court article or right now the presidential related articles or just other articles that just get their hooks in you. And before you know it, you have been hooked. And you took the bait, as we do constantly, and it's in your mouth and you're hooked. And the funny thing is we don't even realize we're hooked. And we look like this. Like you're like sitting there, like you're scrunching your eyes, you're scrunching your mouth, everything's tight on you, and you don't even realize it, but you're literally scrunching on that hook. You're literally holding on to it for your dear life. It's so weird, even though this thing is like literally hurting you. That's when we stop and we try the slight smile. Try it with me real quick. Scrunch your face like you're silly, upset. But it actually is sort of real. You just don't realize this is actually how you look because you're so in it. And you're upset, and you can feel it. Everything's tight. And then I want you to just slowly feel it happen. Slowly, slight smile. And did you not feel everything release? Do you not think that that translates to an energetic level? Because it definitely does. That's why it's so hard to do when you're doing it, when you're clamping onto that hook. So here's the thing. As soon as you can slight smile in that situation and just release your grip a little, then like the hook came out, and it's like you can choose now to eat that bait around the hook, maybe. You can choose to swim by the bait, but now that the hook is out of your mouth, you have a choice. Before, you didn't have a choice. You were just pulling against the hook that was pulling on you. Babaji says, once you deeply let go and get in touch with the inner consciousness, it's like taking a deep breath after being suffocated for a long time. You'll feel relieved and more expansive. That slide really came out nicely. I should be giving artistic credit to someone, but it was just an image I found. Patanjali taught the same practice in his Yoga Sutras 2,000 years ago. And I've always looked at this sutra and been like, oh, that's interesting, because it's like a really practical sutra. He says, more or less, he says, when you inevitably encounter, he says, and suffer from the obstacles of, and he names like 12 different obstacles, like it's a prescription ad, distraction, distress, despair, as well as unsteadiness of body and breath. He says like all these things that happen as you are approaching growth. He says when that happens, he says, you should cultivate friendliness, compassion, and gladness. Sounds like a slight smile. And he says, in order to recall your natural expansiveness. And that points back to that same concept Babaji was saying. Your natural buoyancy, your natural bliss, who you naturally are, if you can let go of the tension for a moment. This kind of work, in the experience that I've been going through for the last, let's just say feels like a solid month of this, just chipping away at this practice, sort of has to sort of exist beside the mind. You don't get very far when you have to justify why you should smile. You just don't get very far. It's almost like it's like a just say no to drugs kind of campaign, where you just say no to creating more tension. Like just nope. You're just like nope. It's this thing you got to just keep doing. And it's not like a mental thing, and it's not like something that you're like gonna like think through. You're just like nope, nope. And it really is just like, oh, you wanna try this? No. I remember when I was a kid and somebody offered me a cigarette. I was like 12. And, we were smoking a cigarette, and I was like, and I just ran away. I just was like, I didn't know how. I was like, there's just too much. I just ran away. It's sort of like that. And interestingly enough, you're like, oh, well, this is, it sounds great, and this is great in the realm of like metaphors, and well, you have proved it actually in terms of spiritual practice, and that's cool. But I want to prove it on one more level, on a real practical level of reality. What inspired this whole talk was watching a documentary, David Attenborough's new documentary that basically spends about an hour and a half telling you the challenges that our world's going through, and then in the last 20 minutes he lifts you back up. So it was a challenging documentary to watch. I am super grateful I watched it. Inspired this entire talk. I feel like it became something. But But it's one of those documentaries where you don't really, it hurts. It's tragic as it is beautiful. Um, One of the redeeming aspects of the film, the whole thing's redeeming, but literally redeeming in this moment in our time, was the Pacific island of Palau, creating what are called that's fun, creating what are called no fishing zones, in order to save their reefs, because the reefs are being decimated by overfishing. And these no fishing zones really saved their population, fish population, and it allowed the fish to replenish in order to overflow. Sorry. Into fishing zones. And it was such an obvious metaphor. That we have to have a place in ourself that we're allowed to drop the hook. That no matter how challenging a situation is, you don't have to bite and fight it. That you can drop the hook with a slight smile and still be informed. And in fact, that allows you to repopulate your bliss instead of overfishing it. And then it naturally spills out into your life. And in the film, it cites marine biologists who are proposing that if we just reserved 1/3 of our oceans to allow the fish to be, that they could feed the whole planet and they could exist and flourish. And it's exactly what our teachers are telling us to do. You know, you want to live in the world, you have to. Why shouldn't we, right? And we can. We just have to have that space set aside in our heart, you know. So I thought it'd be fun as a sankalpa to consider during your day to donate 1/3 of your day to a slight smile. Meaning, you would, if you are starting an activity like doing the dishes, you just, for the first third of it, you just try to have a slight smile. And it's like you're making this really great donation, and you can think of it to the whole world, like Manu is saying, you know, like we've all been saying. And then it's like you don't have, if the, like by that third, if you don't want to anymore, you don't have to. But you know, you're driving somewhere. I know how long it takes for me to drive, you know, to Babaji's house to mow the lawn. You know, well, 1/3 of that, slight smile. Well, if you're going to Babaji's, do it the whole time. But if if you mow lawns for a living, maybe 1/3. And there's so many activities. A meal while you're eating. And look at it like a donation. I think a lot of times we forget how valuable our energy is. So with that, I thought we'd meditate. Because I went a little over on my talk. I think the computer froze a little bit in there. It might have looked like I wasn't talking for a while. We had some technical. No, I'm just kidding. I'm grateful. But let's meditate because it's the best way to put it all together. So I know you all are in a good spot. Yeah, I like seeing the wiggles, smooth it out. And of course, let's not slight smile yet. Be like my mom, and I'm gonna be like, don't smile, don't do it. Well, of course, don't stop it if it comes naturally, but first you can just connect with your breath and just make it smooth, right? Just smooth and flowing. Focus on the flowing nature of the breath. It's not just an inhale or an exhale. Focus on it flowing. Everything in nature works like this. If you can feel that flowing aspect to your breath, feel the same aspect in your body, the stillness, but it's not gripping. It's a relaxed stillness. Like how animals sit still, how they can just relax, or how you might if you were watching one. And when these two things come together, there's a little less resistance to the slight smile. And you can't even really see it from the outside. Really. No one can probably tell, and they don't need to. It's supposed to be slight. It's like the energetic vibration of a smile. And let your awareness just sink. Just let your head sink down, or the energy that we keep in our heads, let it sink down towards the heart. And feel how this slight smile won't let you leave the present. This slight smile is like gravity boots in the present. It won't let you follow a thought. It won't let you leave the room. This slight smile is just anchoring you right here. And that's the open door that you breathe into. And that's when you bring that breath to the heart. And let yourself ungrip let yourself unravel. What's left is bliss. Might not feel like bliss at first, but just keep on unraveling. A slight smile is like the wind in your sails. It just keeps moving you towards the heart. And then for fun, to help with the transition, just let the eyes open a little bit. And maintain that slight smile for just another moment. And just make an internal commitment to revisit this practice at some point in your day when you feel like you're not doing it, to stretch, to make that stretch. And don't worry, no one can tell you're smiling. It's just the feeling. So thank you so much, everyone, for your focus. Thanks, Manu.
Thanks, Latu.
Mm-hmm.